let's talk about a second way that a husband just naturally loves himself. We cherish ourselves. Ephesians 5:29 says in part, "For no man ever hated his own body, but he cherishes it." Now, what does cherish mean? Well, according to the dictionary, it means to treat with affection and tenderness, treasure, value, attach importance to. See, because of this feeling we have toward ourselves, we try to get rest when we're sick or tired. We try to be with friends and loved ones. We play games, we exercise, we do things we enjoy. Periodically, we treat ourselves, don't we? Because we cherish ourselves. So, what does loving our wife as ourself require? Well, it certainly means more than just being able to put up with our mate. It means cherishing her, cultivating affection, fondness for her. Think of this.
So there, Stephen Lett, a member of the governing body. Now you could look at him, you could look at his clothes, you could look at his mannerisms, the way he speaks, you think he's a bit strange. But did you hear what he was saying, how he was teaching? You see, his mouth moves a bit strangely, doesn't it? But then his parents were deaf. He had to learn to speak so that they could read what he was saying as a child. So people have a different upbringing and it affects them. But look how well he has done. You see, he, along with the other men, and look at his clothes. Did he, have you got smarter clothes than that? Is your hair done better? You see, governing body members, they don't have as much as you and I. We may have our own home, we may own our own cars, automobiles. You see, we may go on nice vacations. What do? They live in a little flat in the big buildings of the Bethels, and their savings are meagre, their expenses are tiny. They don't live like world people, executives, etc. They really live what you and I might call a bit of a miserable life, really, a bit of a hard life. So these are ordinary men. Now, what was it that Jesus wanted from his followers? Well, he talks about them being humble, doesn't he? Now, just going to refer to this because this kind of applies to all of us, but it applies to those who are taking the lead. Now, who took the lead in the Christian congregation that Jesus left in charge? Well, it was the apostles, wasn't it? And the one who led them was called Peter. Simon Peter was his name. So I'm just going to read something because Jesus was about to die. This is John 21, and he just says this to Simon Peter. Verse 15, he says, "When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, 'Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?'" These were the disciples, his mates. He replied, "Yes, Lord, you know I have affection for you." He said to him, "Feed my lambs." Again, he said to him the second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And he replied, "Yes, Lord, you know I have affection for you." And he said to him, "Shepherd my little sheep." He said to him a third time, Simon, son of John, do you have affection for me? Peter became grieved that he asked him a third time, Do you have affection for me? So he said to him, "Lord, you are aware of all things. You know I have affection for me." Jesus said to him, "Feed my little lambs," or sheep. So what was Jesus saying to Peter? And as Peter was to be the kind of chairman, the kind of one to organise the group of apostles, he was reiterating, look, all those who become Christians are like my sheep. He says, "My sheep listen to my voice." He says, "I'm not here now, I'm going away. You need to feed them, shepherd them." And he mentions feed again. What does he mean by feed? Well, he means by spiritually caring for the flock as it grew. The flock of Christians grew to tens, 50,000 or so more, 100,000 in the first century. Who was responsible? Mainly the apostles. To illustrate this, there's lots of illustrations, but I'm going to illustrate it with just one verse. There were food problems. A few years after Jesus had died and the apostles were leading the preaching work, there was some food shortages, and there were lots of disciples, lots of Christians who were going short of food. And this is what the apostles organised. It says here, with great power, this is Acts chapter 4, verse 33. It says, with great power the apostles told the people that the Lord Jesus was truly raised from the dead, and God blessed all the believers very much. They all received the things they needed. Everyone that owned fields, land or houses sold them for money. They brought the money and gave it to the apostles. Then each person was given the things they needed. And it also says that the apostles organised trustworthy men to do that. So this distribution was made, especially to widows and orphans, Christians who are widows and orphans. So there was an organised Christian organisation needed, because there were hundreds of 100,000 that became it, of Christians across the world at that time. And just as there was a Christian organisation then, led by the apostles, and later joined by Paul, Saint Paul, they call him in the Catholic Church. These apostles led the Christian organisation. We have brothers to lead the Christian organisation today. They don't look very impressive, some of them. They're not all very young, but they've been serving him, and their main goal is the same as the apostles. They never claim to be important like the apostles, and they certainly don't live an important lifestyle, but they're doing the same work. And the evidence is in what you see. We've had, 23 million nearly attended Memorial this year. The preaching work is up to 9 million. Despite going through COVID, despite the war in Ukraine and other disasters, the organisation of the Christian organisation known as Jehovah's Witnesses, and under the legal name of the Watchtower Society, is successfully caring for what we believe is Christ's sheep on earth. And their primary job is to feed the followers, shepherd them, that means look after them and care for them, and feed them again. And they are then able to preach the good news that Jesus commanded, because only by the followers of Christ feeding the people on the outside, the people who have not yet become Christians and got baptised and come to serve God. And the reason for this is because Jesus is due at Armageddon to sort the problems out. And the more people who know about this, they can have this marvellous hope of a much better future, rather than getting all frightened and scared by all this crazy environmental extinction, zero carbon. We've got to do something by having a confrontation with the political authorities. The answer is not in politics, the answer, or in fighting in a war. The answer is in following Christ. Thank you very much. Take care.